Well, the pressure on South Africa's economy has taken its toll on many businesses, and small businesses have certainly not managed to escape the hard knock. But there are sectors that are ripe with opportunity for astute entrepreneurs to capitalize on in 2017, and perhaps this providing the nudge they need to venture into African terrain. Christo Burtis from Business Partners joins us in studio this evening, and Chimen Chetty from the WITS Innovation Center with us as well. Welcome to you both, and thanks so much for joining me today. Christo, let's start off with you, because as I said, we've got a strained South African economic climate, seeing business as a whole pursue opportunity in other regions. To what extent are we seeing a move to chasing growth outside South Africa by SMEs?
You cannot lock up an entrepreneur. True entrepreneurs, they would find an opportunity wherever it is. And we see the real entrepreneurs that wants to venture and search new opportunities, that they actually are already out there or having their toes in the water, so to speak, in other countries. And they normally do it on a piecemeal basis. They don't go full out, they test it and then gradually it picks up. But definitely there's more growth north of our borders than here. And yes, they must explore those opportunities.
Easier said than done, though, Chimen. So
absolutely.
It's a pretty daunting prospect of venturing into frontier terrain, especially. What are the top three challenges that businesses face going beyond borders?
Okay, if you want to come back to small businesses themselves, with corporates, culture is always an issue, and kind of contextual business practice that might be different, and also policy. But I think with small businesses, the question for me is how do we optimize that? So you've heard from Christo that there's definitely curiosity, and entrepreneurs are for kind where they want to innovate, and they're curious and they will speculate, and they risk, calculated risk, but they're happy to take the risk much more so than big businesses. So the question for me is how do we align an ecosystem that supports that kind of speculation into Africa? And also, how do we then start looking at what is the best practice models and start building on some of that? And I think that is not coming through. There's a whole lot of economic corridors going on in terms of SADC and in the East and ECOWAS and others. But we're not starting to see how this actually serves the interests of small businesses.
Why aren't we seeing it? What are the biggest stumbling blocks at this stage where, we can eventually see entrepreneurs managing to leverage off something like economic corridors?
Well, I think most definitely to get rands back into South Africa, or dollars for that matter, is difficult. From some countries, that is probably the most difficult things. Logistics is often a big problem. Border control, getting it through customs, and even irregular type of fees and charges that they charge at that customs office. You think today I'm taking a product over and that's the customs duty. Tomorrow it's different. That's definitely a problem. And then the legal framework of these countries, they differ from place to place. So if you want to litigate, if you want to go against somebody there, it's quite a task.
Bearing those constraints in mind, Chimen, what sectors are seeing the most absorption of entrepreneurs at this stage?
At the moment, it's tourism. Tourism is kind of growing, and also what's good is women entrepreneurs in tourism. It's one of the fastest growing sectors. So we're starting to see absorption there. We're starting to see in the education space, there's lots of alternate models for education starting to emerge, and that's also kind of supported by funding that's become available because of the demands. So I would say those two.
Do you think businesses are missing the trick that, to make it in Africa, you need more simple than sexy?
I agree, but also definitely disagree in certain countries. Even with technology and information and communication, which is ICT, they jumping certain generations in other countries. It's as if their broadband, their speed of information flow and so on is excellent, and there's a lot of good businesses being set up there that does really that. Then she said tourism packages that go across borders. It is the norm.
Yeah.
And everybody that comes, I'm saying, generalizing, but those coming from abroad, they want to see Southern Africa. And they go to Botswana, they go to Zambia, Zimbabwe, to Kenya, and to South Africa. And it's as if South Africa is the corridor. And they want to see Cape Town, they want to see our wildlife, and then move on. So there's definitely in tourism, working together with other tourism companies elsewhere. And then their manufacturing up north is not so sophisticated because they don't have constant electricity supply and all those things. But if it comes to the state-of-the-art stuff that you can use and so on, they're right there.
Can I add something here? Sorry. So I think I want to go back to the ICT space. I mean, there is going to be an explosion. I was reading an article before I came on that said by 2020, 90% of people over the age of 6 is going to own a cell phone or a smartphone. And what we're seeing across the continent is the use of technology. But we're not seeing it so much in terms of building markets. We're seeing it as enablers for like farmers in terms of getting real-time market values or understanding the weather, understanding new agricultural trends. So ICT, both as an enabler in terms of getting small business across Africa, I think that's a space to watch.
Absolutely, one to watch. Krista, you've highlighted before a shift from startup ventures to acquisitions when growing on the continent, and some venturing down that path because it presents a less risky avenue. I mean, to what extent are you seeing a shift in trend in that space?
There's a definite shift because you don't start with zero turnover. You actually have some base there already. You try and also the local people, they know the business environment. So you partner up with them, but very carefully. You don't go boots and all. You actually suss out and do your due diligence on the local people that could help you in doing it. There's normally a culture difference, and they can actually help you to breach that. And they also streetwise when it comes to the legal framework and so on. So for small businesses, that's the less risky option, but there's still risk. And that's why you need to do your homework on your partner that you're taking on the other side.
Absolutely, a whole lot of risk. And I've got to touch on a very big current risk. Shaman, the recent wave of xenophobia and anti-foreign sentiment, that's limiting labor movement amongst African countries. Do you think it affects small businesses' ability to expand into African countries? To what extent are you seeing this coming through as a hindrance?
Well, I have to say I don't have much information on that. But one would think, I mean, if you look at some of the headlines on Friday, and TVs now, I mean, the channels are across Africa, what is the perception? And I mean, I think it's a very simple thing to think about what the response will be to be doing business with small business people in South Africa. So I'm not saying that it is, but just in terms of understanding how this plays out in a space of building kind of a space to build African business, I'm not sure that it augurs well for us.
Yeah, Chris.
I don't think small businesses are so exposed, and that's why partnerships in the country, African country, is maybe better. So you and small businesses are not so exposed. The brand names, the ShopRites, the MTNs, and so on, they are visible and they would be targeted, their sites. But the small business, I think they under the radar screen. They are there for business and business alone, and the local people, they would accept that. I'm fairly sure about that. That's what we experience in Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya, Malawi, Zimbabwe, and Zambia, and
well, for now at least, let's leave it there. Thank you both for joining me in studio today. Of course, Krista Bottas is with the Business Partners, and Shaman Chetty is with BITS Innovation Center. Up next, we'll be speaking to the Entrepreneur of the Year winner, Johan Ekstien from Agricon, to discuss what it takes to expand a business on the continent. So stay with us.
This is the richest square mile in Africa and the powerhouse of its economy. We didn't build it to be a shopping center. We built it because of a question ordinary people kept asking. Do you know how to make my little today enough for the day I no longer work? Enough for the day I'm no longer around? A question that couldn't be answered with just theory or opinion. This became the richest square mile in Africa, the powerhouse of its economy, the day knowledge rolled up its sleeves